We are still in chapter 5. Before I get on to the antifungals and antiviral drugs, I forgot in the last video to just give you the common meds for that. So at least it's going to be on... Oh, nope, I don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. We want to see the fun picture, and here's your medicines that are antibacterial. So you can pause that, write those down. I'll show them in class too, but in case you wanted them to have on the video, there they are. All right, so let's go into the second part of the chapter 5. It's not as long, and mainly because antifungals and antivirals pretty much do the same thing. They pretty much limit the growth and spread, and eventually your body takes care of that because they're not continuing to grow. So we're going to start with antifungal agents, and there is some information on here that's a little bit beyond the book, or that's not in the book. So as we get going, you'll see some of those kind of stuff. Here's the terminology that's related specifically to this part. These are all about. These are all about the fungals right there, right? So when we talk about fungal infections, I'm going to put a whole bunch of stuff up there. These are the growing yeasts and molds and yucky stuff. There's some, you'll see the terminology mycosis. You'll see within the mycosis type category. Hopefully it's not systemic. Most of them that we're going to see is within the skin, dermatophytic, that's in the skin themselves. And then sometimes you'll see in the mucous membranes, candidiasis, the kind of the yeast infection type stuff that can be, but they're all fungal type infections. So I do want you to have an idea of some of these terms as we go through. Same thing, right? So same thing, we have a fungicidal category. And we have a fungistatic category. The fungicidal, especially if they're systemic, there'll be some that will actually destroy and kill the fungus, the growing fungus themselves. And then the fungistatic is mostly in the skin, where we just prevent it from growing and spreading. And then as the skin continues to produce more, push more of those skin cells up, they die, they just kind of get pushed off. So as new tissue comes and is replaced, that's why it takes a while on some of the fungal infections in your skin as you go. The parenteral or oral administrations are usually for some of those systemic, more hardcore ones that are there. They also have a little bit more of the adverse effects that come along with some of these things that go on. The skin ones are the easy ones, right? Because they're on the skin. We have a good barrier, and I mean, it may itch, it may look gross, but they're usually pretty easily treatable and managed pretty good with our topical antifungal drugs. And these are the ones that are fungistatic, that they're just going to prevent this thing, that little circle, from getting any bigger. And then as that person grows their skin, it's just going to push that off, and it'll slough off and be good. This is sorry, I didn't warn you the gross. This is thrush, the mucous membrane fungal infection, kind of a candidiasis within the mouth itself. But there's antifungal washes and other things that get into there. As we get into and that's it, right? So that's it for the fungal stuff. Just there will be some medicines at the end that are on here, and there also will be some literature that we're going to read about the specific antifungal agents, and that's on page 103. The topical ones that you can see on there, table 5-7 is the actual table that we're in there. Once we get to viral infections, right? So the whole thing about a virus is it's going to basically attach to good cells, and it changes that cell, via the RNA DNA pathways, and it basically turns that cell into one of its own, and then you have 2 cells going out, and then you have 4, and then you have 8, and that's just this massive multiplication, hopefully not too fast before our body can get on top. And we know that there's some viruses that go really fast. There's other viruses that are much more slower. So make sure you have an idea of the general action, right? So that's why when you talk about COVID vaccines and the mRNA, having that kind of a knowledge of how these viruses work, that's why the vaccine platform is effective on that one. And then the immunity, knowing our antibodies, knowing basically some basic immune terminology, so we know really how this works. As we expose ourselves to these different viruses, our body creates antibodies, and then we're much more able to fight that same pathogen, that same virus, if we come in contact with it again. In fact, that viral immunity, or that previous immunity, is super strong. That thing is, it is really, really good, way more than just a vaccine. So if you've already had the flu, the specific strain of the flu, then you don't need the specific strain of the flu vaccine kind of thing. And there was a lot of controversy with COVID doing the same thing. If I've already had COVID, I should have the antibodies. And there was definitely some controversy there, and we can talk about that in class. Let's talk about the drugs. So in here, there are no cidal drugs. There's really no antiviral drugs that are going to kill it. What we have is most of the drugs are just going to stop, right? Just going to stop it from entering the cell, kind of keep it together until our immune system, whether it's the antibodies that we already have, or if our T cells, B cells, and everything need to come in here, create the antibodies and kill it for next time, and have antibodies for next time. That's how we're going to do it. So ultimately, we're just kind of stopping the whole process of doing that. Unfortunately, these viruses can mutate as well, so there can be some resistance that occurs. And really, the antibodies, as you guys know, hopefully know, their antibodies are very specific to that one specific type of pathogen or virus in that case. So if these things do mutate and come back, and you re-expose to a mutated form, you may get sick again, right? Now, this stuff is not in your text. I'm going to go pretty quick because I'm hoping you guys have a decent idea. We can talk more about this in class if you want to get into it. But this is just the common one, right? So the flu virus is just a common airborne respiratory virus that comes around every year. It is a lot of times it's just kind of minimized, like, oh yeah, here you got the flu. It's a bummer. I'm going to be sick for 4 or 5 days and that kind of stuff. But there are some, right? There's some populations that really become affected with it. Most of the time, the flu is a virus. Most of the time, colds are from some kind of bacterial infection. You can kind of see the back and forth, and whether you, as you get sick, are you getting a flu, or are you getting this bacterial infection or cold or that kind of stuff? What are we going to call it? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. And I think COVID really has affected and changed the way we just deal with, oh, I'm not feeling so bad, and you kind of keep going. Now we're much more quick to go get tested and make sure that it's not that COVID thing. But you can kind of see an idea. But ultimately, flu or the viral infections are a lot more of a, man, I don't feel good, and then whammo, you feel it, as opposed to this gradual kind of fighting it for a couple days kind of situation. The complications, you can see those, some associated infections because we have a weak immune system, pneumonia as we get fluid in our lungs that we can have. And then I did mention the vaccine in there, that we're, the exposure to an inactive form of, and it's strain specific, of that virus, that it hopefully, once we come in contact again with that, then we will have antibodies. And so now is the time to get that for the upcoming flu season. And these are usually, and now I think we're getting to that point in COVID that we're really looking at risk populations, and hoping that we can get those folks, with the ones that are in the elderly and immune compromised folks, to get some of those signs. You guys have heard of herpes before. This is a common viral infection that comes in, simple little fever blisters, cold sores, canker sores inside the mouth. These can be triggered by a number of different things: trauma, stress, other viral infections, other weakened immune system states. But this is a good one for, there's our shingles, right? This is a good one for your antivirals, right? So you put an antiviral cream. There are some oral antivirals that can be taken as, at the onset of that first little, man, I think I'm getting a cold sore. Boom, hit that up, and that can limit the spread. It doesn't kill it, it limits the spread. All right, I think I'm now going to show you something that's not very pleasant, and I probably should take this off, but you know what? Some people like to see it, so I'll go quick as I as I show this, and then I'll move on to the common meds. It's going to be gross. All right, so here is your common meds notebook stuff, and you can kind of write those down. I'll show that in class again if you are interested, but there you go.